Welcome to the RemoteMore Cybersecurity podcast. In each episode, we explore how fast-moving teams bake security into architecture, decisions, and growth. Whether you're a CTO, security lead, or engineering manager, this is your space for clear insights, expert thinking, and actionable strategies.
You know that feeling, right? That sinking sensation when maybe a vulnerability scan drops something like, 40 pages of medium severity issues right in your lap.
Oh, yeah. 40 pages optimistic sometimes.
Right. Or you're just staring at some massive project list, 500 findings maybe, and it just feels like, noise. Like entropy, not insight.
Exactly. Just data overload. And Look, the data itself might be perfectly fine. That scan could be accurate. The audit findings, totally legit.
Sure.
But if it doesn't tell you what to do, if there's no clear next step, then it's not really helping, is it? It's actually just burying you.
Which kind of defeats the purpose. You're supposed to get clarity, make better decisions, faster, not drown in digital paperwork.
Precisely.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at some really great thinking on practical risk prioritization, from findings to action, based on an article and a related post online.
Yeah, really practical stuff.
Our mission really is to pull out the actionable bits. How do you take that huge, overwhelming list and turn it into a clear, prioritized plan? Cut through the chaos.
Find the signal in the noise. Help you figure out what actually matters so you can put your effort where it counts.
Okay, so to do that, maybe we should first unpack why the usual ways of doing this often fail. Why do we end up feeling buried?
Good starting point. Then maybe we can get into those 3 basic questions this really effective teams ask.
Right, the ones they use to spot leverage. And this idea of building a heat map, not a to-do list. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
We can look at that simple risk matrix they suggest.
Definitely. And also touch on picking a framework that actually works for your team, not just the fanciest name brand one.
Yeah, that's crucial. And finally, that big shift, right? Moving from just chasing volume, fixing everything, to really chasing clarity, and what that means for the team, for burnout.
Absolutely. So by the end, hopefully you'll have some solid strategies, ways to figure out what's important, not just in security, but really anywhere you're trying to prioritize, turning chaos into focus.
Okay, let's start there then. Why do these traditional methods, the 500 findings, the endless mediums, why do they leave us feeling so swamped?
Well, like we touched on, it's often not the data itself. The scanner finds what it finds. The auditors list what they see. The breakdown happens, I think, when that raw data isn't filtered through your context, meaning what's the actual impact to your business? What resources do you realistically have? Many systems are just built to flag every possible issue. They don't inherently weigh business impact or likelihood in a way that translates to do this first.
So the risk model itself, the way you're supposed to understand threats, just spits out a list.
Pretty much. If it doesn't have a clear hierarchy built in, if it doesn't answer why this one and what should I do next, then it's just a report. It's information maybe, but not guidance. The why and the what next are missing.
Right. Okay, so that's the problem.
Yeah.
How do the teams that get this right, the ones who aren't paralyzed, how do they cut through? The sources mentioned they get good at spotting leverage by asking just 3 basic questions. What are they?
Yeah, this is where it gets really practical, I think. Instead of getting bogged down, they focus. They ask, number 1, what's the impact if this actually gets exploited?
Okay, so real-world consequences, what breaks?
Exactly. Then, number 2, how likely is it to happen? Moving beyond just theoretical possibilities to actual probability, is this a 1 in a million shot or something attackers are actively using right now?
Impact and likelihood. Makes sense. What's the third?
The third one is key. How fast would we catch it? Or maybe, would we even know it happened? This brings in your detection, your response capabilities. It's not just about prevention, it's about resilience.
Okay. Impact, likelihood, detection, speed. That feels manageable, almost deceptively simple.
It is simple, but powerful, because it forces you to connect the technical finding to the business reality and your ability to react.
So why don't more teams just do this? Instead of getting tangled up in complex frameworks that maybe look impressive, but don't offer that clarity.
Well, I think there's often a tendency, maybe a human thing, to think that complexity equals thoroughness. more data points, more intricate scoring must be better.
It feels more scientific or something.
But the sources really argue that clarity often comes from simplifying. These 3 questions force you to focus on what genuinely matters to the business and your actual exposure, rather than getting lost in endless technical nuances that might not have a real impact.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So once you have the answers from those 3 questions, the next step is this idea of building a heat map, not a to-do list. Can you unpack that? What does that look like? How does this simple risk matrix fit in?
Right. Think about a standard to-do list. It's flat, right? Everything looks equally urgent. It just stretches on forever. It's overwhelming. A heat map, though, visually draws your eye. It uses color or position to show you where the real heat is, the critical spots. The source gives this really straightforward risk matrix, nothing fancy, no complex software needed.
Okay.
Imagine a grid. Across the top, you have likelihood, low, medium, high. Down the side, you have impact, high, medium, low.
Got it. Simple grid.
Simple grid. Now you plot your findings, something with high impact and high likelihood. The matrix labels that immediate action. That's your red zone, top right corner.
Okay, makes sense. Fix it now.
Exactly. What about high impact but low likelihood? That falls into medium priority. It'd be bad if it happened, but it's less likely. Same for medium impact, medium likelihood, also medium priority.
So those are your yellow zones. Keep an eye on them, plan for them.
Right. And then low impact and low likelihood, the matrix just says ignore it.
Ignore it, really?
Well, maybe accept the risk is the better term. But yeah, the point is, with limited resources, you can't fix everything. This gives you explicit permission to focus your energy where it provides the most protection against real harm. It gets everyone, security, engineers, managers, on the same page fast.
That's a huge shift from trying to boil the ocean to actually focusing on the biggest waves.
Precisely. It stops the chasing of every minor thing and channels effort towards what could genuinely break the business.
And that ties into the next point about frameworks. The sources say pick one that fits. Don't just chase the big names like NIST or ISO 27001. Why is the fit so much more important than the brand recognition?
Yeah, it's about practicality again. Look, those established frameworks, NIST, ISO, and others, they're perfectly fine. They're comprehensive, well-respected guidelines for managing security.
Right. They're the standards lots of people aim for.
They are. But the source makes a really key point. The best framework is the one your team actually understands, believes in, and uses consistently. It doesn't have to be the most complex one.
So adoption is key.
Absolutely. A good, consistently applied framework, even a simple one like that matrix we just discussed, helps in so many ways. It brings process consistency. You're not making it up as you go along each time.
Okay.
It massively improves communication. Engineers need to understand why they're being asked to fix something, not just blindly follow orders. A clear framework facilitates that conversation.
Okay, so they see where it falls on the map.
Exactly. And finally, it helps with documentation. Whether it's for internal reporting, talking to auditors, or explaining risks to executives, having that consistent structure is invaluable. It's about utility, not just ticking a compliance box with a fancy name.
So it's a tool that has to be usable day to day, not just a certificate on the wall. Which really leads us to that final big idea. Shifting from chasing volume to chasing clarity. The source has that great line, you don't win by fixing 100 issues. You win by fixing the 5 that matter most. What does it really mean for how teams work and for avoiding burnout?
I think this might be the most powerful takeaway, honestly, especially for anyone feeling swamped. The idea is that your success isn't measured by the number of tickets you close. It's measured by the impact of the work you do.
Quality over quantity, applying to risk.
Precisely. And having a smart risk model, one that gives you that clarity, it directly affects team morale. It prevents burnout. I mean, think about it. Who wants to spend their days chasing down an endless list of miscellaneous security issues?
Right, or things that feel like edge cases with no real urgency.
Exactly. Engineers get frustrated, security teams get demoralized. It feels like hamster wheel work. But when they can clearly see why a specific task matters, when they understand, okay, fixing this prevents a high impact, high likelihood threat, or this shores up our resilience against our biggest risk,
then it feels meaningful.
it feels meaningful. They're more motivated. They feel a sense of accomplishment. They understand how their work fits into the bigger picture. It stops being a draining to-do list and starts being strategic, impactful work.
So pulling this all together, what's the main message for you listening right now, maybe feeling that sense of information overload?
I think the core message is, insight doesn't come from the sheer volume of data. It comes from understanding what truly matters within that data.
Yeah, remember those 3 questions. Impact, likelihood, detection speed. They're your filter.
And think about using a simple framework, like that risk matrix heat map, to visualize priorities and create clarity quickly. Don't get bogged down in complexity for complexity's sake.
And always keep that quote in mind. You don't win by fixing 100 issues. You win by fixing the 5 that matter most.
That's the essence of it.
And while we've focused on cybersecurity examples because that's what our sources used, these ideas, practical prioritization, focusing on impact, they apply everywhere, don't they?
Absolutely. Any field, any role where you're facing too much information, too many demands, too many potential problems, your own work, project management, even personal life decisions, these strategies help you cut through the noise and focus your energy effectively.
Transforming that chaos into actual focus.
Right. So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Given everything we've talked about today, how could you maybe rethink how you prioritize your own tasks or challenges?
Moving beyond just a list.
Yeah, moving beyond just a flat to-do list towards creating your own kind of heat map. Where are you potentially buried under findings in your work or life right now? And how could asking those 3 questions impact likelihood? Maybe how fast would I notice?
Yeah.
How could that shift help you focus on what really drives results and maybe, just maybe, reduce some of that feeling of being overwhelmed?